Hello, welcome to lesson 2 of Design of Simple App for Community Development Association. In this tutorial, we shall be creating the starting web API for the application by using database first approach. In part 1, we created the starting database for the application. We did that by looking at the domain models that we identified. Then we created a starting database based on the domain model. So we are going to use the starting database in part 1 to create a starting web API. So now I'm going to right-click on SQL Server Management Studio. I'll click on Open. Then I will enter in the connection parameters that I need. Then I'll click Connect. So I'm going to expand Databases tab. This is the database that we created. The name of the database is CDADB. Let's expand it. So we have these tables: meeting agenda, meeting attendees, meetings, member contributions, and members. So now we can create a database diagram between all these entities that we have identified in the database. How do we create the database diagram? Is actually the entity relationship diagram at the database level. So I'll right click here, I'll say install diagram support, and I'll click yes. Then I'll say new database diagram. So I can select all the entities by holding shift key, and then I select all, then I click add. Then after that, I click close. Let me right click and zoom to, let's say, 75%. I want to rearrange all the tables so that we can see them at a glance. So here we have genders. There is one table at the bottom. Okay, phone number. So these are all the entities. Just rearranging so that you can see them at a glance. Okay. So now, so these are all the entities. Now I can right click and say save diagram 0. Okay, fine. So now let's move to the main business of the day, which is creating the starting web API. So I'll go to Microsoft Visual Studio. So I'll go to create new project. So I'm going to search for API. So under API, you can see I have ASP.NET Core Web API, ASP.NET Core Web API C#, ASP, the F#, and Full Stack Hero. The one I'm going to choose here is ASP.NET Core Web API. Then I'll click Next. So I'm going to call the application CDA API. So I'm going to save it in a folder called CDA API. Then I'll click Next. Framework 7, authentication, none for now. I'm going to use controllers. I'm going to enable Swagger. So enable Open API support means I'm enabling Swagger for the application. Then I'll click Create. I'm going to test run the API that I've just created. By running the HTTPS button. So this is the newly created API I've just created. It contains just one endpoint, which is the get weather forecast endpoint, which is the sample endpoint that you normally have when you create a new web API with Visual Studio template. So you can just say try it out, and you click execute, and you can see the array of weather values that are returned. So let's click cancel. Let's go back to our project and we click stop. So now there is this guy. His name is Eric EJ. Eric J. Eric J. So Eric J developed a tool that you can use to scaffold DB context. So if you go to okay. Let me see. I'm trying to get the name of the stuff. Let me right click here and get it from here. Okay, the name of the stuff is EF Core Power Tools. So just search for EF Core Power Tools. EF Core, that's Entity Framework Core Power Tools. So this is Entity Framework Core Power Tools. Let's click on the link. Let's see what you can do with it. So you click download. When you finish downloading it, then you can install it. So I already have it installed on my system. So I'm going to right click on my project. I'm going to select EF Core Power Tools. Then I'll click on Reverse Engineer. Then I'm going to click on Add. Then I'll select Add Database Connection. Data source will be Microsoft SQL Server. Then I click Continue. Server name is localhost. Authentication is SQL Server Authentication. Username is SA. Password is whatever it is. Select or enter a database name. We choose CDADB here. Then we click Test Connection. Then we close the dialog showing us that test connection is successful. Then we click OK. Then we'll click OK. So now we expand tables, we expand DPO, we select all the tables, then we click OK. Namespace CD API, entity types will be saved in models folder. DB context part, let's put it in data. Okay. Is there anything else we are missing? Something. Okay, CDADB context. That will be the name of the context. And let's uncheck this. Then we click OK. So EF Core Power Tool says model generated successfully. So then it says the Microsoft Entity Framework for the SQL Server NuGet package was not found in the project, must be installed in order to click OK. So when I click, on the project, now we say manage NuGet packages. Go to browse, Microsoft, entity framework core.SQL server. Click install. We click OK. We click accept. We go again. We right click. Manage NuGet packages. We go to browse. Microsoft Entity Framework Core. You select it. You click install. Go again. Manage NuGet packages. Microsoft Entity Framework Core dot tools store. Okay, accept. You go again, manage NuGet packages. Right click, manage NuGet packages. Microsoft Entity Framework Core .design. Click tools. You click OK, sorry. Then you click accept. Let's look at the codes we've written. Let me check DB context. Okay, I still have Microsoft Entity Framework Core .metadata. I have it. Manage NuGet packages. All right, click Entity Framework for Meta. Okay. I think it's dot relational. Click install. Click OK. Click accept. Click save. Then there is one more guide to go. So I'll right click again, manage NuGet packages, Microsoft. Okay, let me search for design. No, this is not what I'm looking for. I click manage NuGet packages, Microsoft, Visual Studio .web .code generation .design. That's what I'm looking for. This is a tool, code generation tool for ASP.NET Core. Contains the .NET ASP.NET code generator command used for generating controllers and views. So I'll click on this and click install. So I'll click OK. I'll click I accept. So at this point, I'll click Save All. At this point, I'll right click on the project and then I'll click on Build. So everything is fine. So now, the next thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to open up settings.json. I'm going to add database connection. I don't want to call it default connection. I want to call it CDA connection. Server is localhost. Database name is CDADB. User is equal to this. Having done that, so after adding the connection string to the web config, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to program.cs. So after line 1, I'm going to add connection string. I'm going to get connection string, get DB connection string. And I'm going to write something like this, but connection string is equal to builder.configuration.get connection string. Then I'll go to app settings.json. The name of my connection is not default connection, CDA connection. I'll copy that. I will go back to program.cs. Then I'll replace it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to add DB context to services collection. So I'm going to say builder.services.add DB context. The name of the context is not going to be hotel booking app context. But the name of the context is going to be this CDADB context that Eric EF Core Power Tools generated for us. So I'll copy this CDADB context. I will go back to program.cs. I will replace this with CDADB context. Notice that the namespace has been automatically imported for us by Visual Studio. So I have data.services.add.db context, CDADB context, options goes into options.use SQL Server connection strings. So at this point, I will save up. I will head over to Solution Explorer. I right click on the project again and say build. So everything is fine so far. Let me examine the DB context again, just to be sure. Okay, so this is how I have it. I think we are good here. So now the next thing to do is to right click on controllers folder. I'll right click, then I will say add. Then, okay, I think I can say new scaffolded items. So after selecting new scaffolded items, then the next thing I'm going to select is I'll click on API. So so we have API controller with actions using entity framework. Let me see. Yes, API controller with actions using entity framework. So I'll click add. So the model class, the first model class will be genders. The DB context will be GDADB context. So the controller name will be gender controller. So I'll click add. So gender controller has been created. Let's run the project again. So you can see you have get all genders. Get gender is to return all genders. Post gender to create a new gender. So if you click on get gender, you say try it out, and you click execute. Get this property system.invalid operation. The connection string property has not been initialized. Okay, let's stop the project. Stop debugging. Let's check setting to initial catalog is got to CDA connection. CDA connection. Okay, let me put a breakpoint in. As controller. Let me go to program.cs. And put a breakpoint here. Let me say debug, stop debugging. Let me see. Let me run again. Connection string. Function F10. Data of configuration dot Get connection string CDA. So this is a CDA connection. Okay. So the bug stopped debugging. The error here was due to the fact that we were supposed to have a parent property called connection strings here. Then we open it. Then this CDA connection was supposed to be a subproperty inside connection strings property. So now let's run the project again. Click on play TPS button, F10. Okay. Here now we can see that our connection string property is initialized. So let's go to debug, delete all breakpoints, and then I click continue. So if I click on get genders, now try it out, execute, empty array is returned. So let me click on post AP gender. So try it out. Gender ID is 0, gender name is male. So let me remove all this. So let me click. Let me click execute. So I get a 201, which indicates success. So let me click get all genders API again. I click execute. So that's fine. Okay. So let's go to debug. Stop debugging. Let's create all the other controllers. So I right click on controllers, I click add new scaffolded item, select API controller with actions using entity framework. Required model class will be meeting agenda. The context class has been selected for you, that's CDADB context. Controller name meeting agenda controller, then you click add. We go again, controllers, add new scaffolded items. This time around, meeting attendees. Meeting attendee controller, add. You right click again, add new scaffolded items, API controllers with actions in entity framework. Meetings controller. Model is meetings. Controller name is meeting controller. Add new scaffolded item, API controller with action using entity framework. Member contributions, member contribution controller. Add new scaffolded items, API controller with actions using entity framework. The last but not the least will be members model. Controller name will be member controller. Add so at this point, I'll run the project again. So we have endpoints for gender, entity, meeting agenda, meeting attendee, member, and member contribution. So that's the end of the tutorial for today. Thank you for watching.